Let's now return to our earlier story about the NATO summit and the bid of both Sweden and Ukraine to join the military alliance. Joining me from Belfast in Ireland is the journalist Francis Hughes. Thank you for joining us on The World Now. Let's begin with the significance of this gathering. It is the first time Lithuania will be convening the NATO summit, since it joined the alliance in 2004. What's the significance of this?
Well, I think the significance is actually the position that Lithuania holds within the old Eastern Alliance, what was once upon a time the Warsaw Soviet Pact. I think that Lithuania is a very Russia-phobic country. It has a very anti-Russian government, and it suits the other NATO members, especially America and Britain and Ukraine, not a NATO member as yet, to hold a summit there, close to the border with Ukraine, close to the border with Russia, at the height of the Ukrainian counteroffensive, which seems to be failing and stalling every day. So I think it is there in Vilnius to put pressure upon NATO members like France and Germany, who are hesitant to allow Ukraine to join NATO, and indeed are hesitant to allow the conflict as such between Ukraine and Russia's special military operation to exceed the Ukraine borders and eventually spill over into other EU NATO countries.
All right, we'll get to Ukraine's bid to join NATO in a moment, but let's talk about Sweden. It just appears the coast is now clear, with its main opposition, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan of Turkey, agreeing to, approve that, they join NATO. How do you think the ratification would, how long do you think the ratification would take, and how will this impact the Scandinavian nation?
Well, I don't know how long the process will take, because Erdogan has agreed, and I believe the Turkish parliament has voted in favour of allowing Sweden to join NATO. But there appears to be a kickback here, like a quid pro quo, that Turkey will only allow Sweden to join NATO if Turkey is allowed to join the EU. So Erdogan's long-term dream has been to join the European Union, and that has been held up by EU members who believe that the Turkish government does not have a good record on human rights. And then the opposite of that is that Ulf Kristersson, who is the Prime Minister of Sweden, has had a long-term dream to join NATO. So both of those dreams are going to come true, but they may very well become nightmares for Eastern Europe, because by allowing Finland, which joined recently, it became the 31st member of NATO, its border is nearly as long as the Ukrainian border onto the Russian Federation. And countries that join NATO ultimately become kind of vassals for America, which then puts American bases on their soil. So the special military operation in Ukraine was to protect the 2 million people in eastern Ukraine from a possible massacre for the neo-Nazi coup that took over in Ukraine in 2014. And Russia did not want the Ukraine to join NATO because it didn't want NATO missiles and nuclear arms on its border. But it will have them in Finland, and Turkey already has similar weapons. So Russia is being pushed back, it is being corralled, and the length of the Russian border from Sweden through Sweden through Finland, then through Ukraine, and then through the other Baltic states like Bulgaria, right round to Turkey, is encircling Russia. And this can only end up very bad for everybody.
And as it stands already, EU leaders have already noted that these are separate issues, Sweden joining NATO and Turkey joining the EU. But then let's now talk about Ukraine. President Zelensky can't wait. He's so optimistic, and he's anticipating Ukraine joining the military alliance. But then member nations are saying that this is a country at war. He himself agrees, but then he wants them to give a clear signal. Do you see this happen during the summit?
I think what's going to happen in the summit is America is going to pressurize Biden and the American administration, going to pressurize the other NATO members, the other 31 countries, to step up and arm more the Ukrainian regime, to give them further weapons such as, and the UK is giving them tanks with depleted uranium. That's going to cause birth defects for generations to come. America is supplying cluster bombs, which could also be used to deliver chemical and biological weapons. And they are intergenerational bombs because 40% of them don't explode on impact. And as we saw in Laos, there were that many dropped by America that 50 years later, even the leader in Cambodia has expressed the desire that they're not to be used because they are still suffering today with people who lose their lives or lose a leg from these cluster bomb munitions that are still going off 50 years later. So I think for Ukraine wants to join NATO. It's Russophobic. It's a fascist, racist, neo-Nazi regime, and they have already tried to force NATO into joining with troops on the ground.
Right then, Francis Hughes, there, a journalist, joined us from Belfast in Ireland. Thank you very much, Francis.